Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Full confession. A year ago, I never could have imagined that one of the most brutal and humiliating betrayals ever of Donald Trump would come from Colorado Republican Lauren Boebert. But here we are. Lauren Boebert rejected the Trump request to block the Epstein files, and we now know that Boebert's snub of Trump came after a personal phone call from the president and a White House meeting for Boebert with Trump's Attorney General and FBI Director.
Let me tell you, Brianna, it is incredibly unusual for the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, and the FBI Director to brief a single member of Congress. They weren't briefing her because she was the chair of a committee on a pressing matter. If she wanted to talk about the Epstein files, and that is what they talked about, it is unusual to have that high level of Justice Department power sitting down here at the White House with a Republican Congresswoman.
And they were sitting down and lobbying Boebert in the White House Situation Room. It's the president's own sensitive compartmentalized information facility, or SCIF. Cell phones won't work in a SCIF and must be kept outside to prevent recordings. And everything said in the Situation Room is cut off not just from the outside world, but from the rest of the White House. 15 years ago, President Obama and his national security team monitored the raid on Osama bin Laden from the Situation Room. Remember that? Trump's team just used the Situation Room to try and block the release of the Epstein files, a sexual predator. The heavy-handed Trump team approach to Lauren Boebert was even more remarkable given the Trump team's public messaging and response to Epstein scandal questions.
Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep.
But the claim about the timing of Trump's falling out with Epstein has been shredded by other Epstein emails. One newly released email indicates that Epstein saw Trump over Thanksgiving in 2017, nearly a year into Trump's first presidential term. And regarding Caroline Leavitt's assertion the Epstein scandal proves Trump did nothing wrong, there was this.
Why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That's a defining factor of transparency, having discussions with members of Congress about various issues. And I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room, in the press briefing room.
So the Trump White House is transparent, but needed to talk with Lauren Boebert in a sensitive classified area. And the Trump team doesn't want to release all the Epstein files. I know, there is zero logic or consistency with the Trump argument. In other words, it's just like any other day of the week in Trump world. Still, the Epstein scandal has clearly freaked out Donald Trump and panicked his top administration officials. Because not only was there a Trump effort to stop Lauren Boebert, but Trump reportedly tried to call another House Republican who signed the discharge petition, South Carolina's Nancy Mace. Mace allegedly refused to take Donald Trump's phone call. The Epstein documents, data, photographs, and video lawmakers are seeking from the Department of Justice and FBI are separate from the materials a House committee has already obtained from Epstein's estate. The Epstein estate materials, which include the 22,000 documents just released by the House Oversight Committee, were delivered to Congress in accordance with a subpoena. Ironically, the idea to subpoena Epstein's estate came from a lawyer for a few of Epstein's victims. The documents released so far paint a picture of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein being each other's best friends for over a decade. They shared everything: airplanes, financial deals, and allegedly young girls. In one email, Epstein wrote that Trump knew about the girls. In another email, Epstein wrote that Trump spent several hours at Epstein's home with one of the girls. Congressional lawmakers believe the Epstein files being kept at the Department of Justice and FBI are even more graphic and include photographs and videos, not just of Donald Trump, but of other powerful and wealthy Epstein friends and associates. One of the Epstein victims said that everything and everybody in Epstein's mansion was recorded on video, and that Epstein and his associate Ghislaine Maxwell did this surreptitiously. For years, MAGA Republicans were convinced that Jeffrey Epstein ran a pedophilia ring involving high-ranking Democrats. And during the last presidential campaign, Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and countless others in MAGA world, including members of Donald Trump's own family, promised that all of the Epstein files would be released. So now, Donald Trump is stuck. And even Republicans who did not sign the discharge petition but report they will vote to release everything, they say this mess is the Trump team's own fault.
When you tell everybody you're going to release everything, that you have the names of all the clients, and then you come back and say, oh, there was none. This was a self-inflicted wound by the White House and how they handled this, and I think they've dug themselves a hole. But in the end, I'm for transparency. Everything should be out other than the victims' names for that. We're getting results already without the discharge petition is what I would like to really convey here.
But there is far more that is being kept by the Trump Justice Department and FBI. This includes grand jury investigation materials, witness statements, digital data, photographs, and videos. So the political pressure on Republicans is ratcheting up. And it will only intensify with the Epstein vote in the House, which will pass. And then the political squeeze will escalate in the U.S. Senate. Republicans are in a no-win position here. If they vote to defend Donald Trump and block the Epstein files, they could get killed politically, especially if more damaging information comes out. If GOP lawmakers vote to release the files, the elected Republicans will face the wrath of Trump, who keeps calling the scandal a hoax. Amidst the conundrum for the GOP, Democrats are having a field day.
We know that there's something there. We know that his own attorney general had to admit that he is in the files, but they are trying to hide stuff. The only reason that we have these emails is because we were able to get them from the estate, not because the Department of Justice was releasing information, not because Kash Patel was releasing information, even though they've had subpoenas from the Oversight Committee for some time. Kash Patel continues to hold back information. So I thank God that there is somebody that still respects the law and still respects subpoenas in this country, but it's not the people that are in power to do it, the people that actually conducted the investigation. Imagine what we may discover if we got the investigatory information versus getting something from an estate.
A lot of Republicans are now imagining that, and it's got them freaked out and anxious. So there is something of a jailbreak underway among GOP House lawmakers. A few of them are even pointing to Trump's last-ditch efforts to pull Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace back from the discharge petition. For Donald Trump, who keeps saying he's done nothing wrong, Trump's lobbying, say the lawmakers, was not a good look. And in politics, failure is even worse. By the way, one of Donald Trump's most outspoken supporters in the U.S. House is North Carolina's Virginia Foxx, and she just erupted after a Democrat ridiculed Foxx over the government shutdown.
Ms. Ansari, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome back from your 8 weeks of taxpayer-funded vacation. It's good to see you, and I hope
I'm going to interrupt you.
Republicans
I'm going to interrupt you,
Please.
I am sick and tired of hearing you all say we had an 8-week vacation.
That's exactly what happened.
I worked every day. I don't know about you, but I don't want to hear
every single day
another
as well. We all
soul
worked
say that.
every single day, and that's exactly what happened with Speaker Mike Johnson.
You're recognized.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.